Good day, everyone. Again, this is Sir MJ, and we are going to discuss this subject. And for this day, we are going to begin this discussion by discussing Lesson 1.2 entitled The Solar System. But before we proceed in our entire discussion, let me present to you our objectives for this discussion. First is we are going to compare the different hypotheses explaining the origin of the solar system. And lastly, we are going to explain the different theories about the origin of the universe. Before we head in our entire discussion, let me ask you a question. What made it possible for the asteroids and star planets to become one big system? This question is very interesting when we talk about the origin of the solar system. You will know the answer for this question by this discussion. Just listen carefully and take down notes what you have been the what what we have been discussed. So when we say model, it is a representation of an idea, an object, or even a process that is used to describe and explain a phenomenon that cannot be experienced directly. Again, when we say model, it is a representation rather of an idea or even object and process that is used to describe and explain a phenomenon that cannot be experienced directly. Scientists used models to predict a phenomenon or event such as the origin of the solar system. Scientists used model to represent the origin of the solar system. Therefore, a model is a scientist's description of an event at that time, demonstrating how science knowledge is tentative. When we say tentative, it is not sure to be proven. There are two popular models about the solar system, and that is the geocentric model and heliocentric model. When we say geocentric model, it is a model that describes the Earth was the center of the universe, while the heliocentric model, it describes the Sun is the center of the universe. Claudius Ptolemy stated geocentric model to represent that the Earth was the center of the solar system, while Nicholas Copernicus described that the Sun was the center of the universe, and that model is what we call the heliocentric model. During the time of Claudius Ptolemy, the geocentric model was accepted explanation of the different motions in the universe. The Sun, Moon, stars, and 5 planets, which is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, move around the Earth. Their idea of a solar system at that time was their idea of the universe where planets move with respect to fixed stars with changing brightness, changing speed, and having retrograde motion. When we say retrograde motion, it is a strange motion caused by the Earth's motion. During the 16th century, Nicholas Copernicus proposed an opposing idea to the geocentric model by developing another model that explained the structure of the solar system. This proposal became the foundation of the Copernican revolution. The understanding of how the solar system originated became more than just descriptive models, it became scientific. So let's discuss the different hypotheses explaining the origin of the universe. First is the nebular hypothesis. Immanuel Kant during 1724 to 1804 and Pierre-Simon Laplace during 1749 to 1827 were the first to propose the earliest theory of how the solar system originated, and that is the Kant-Laplace nebular hypothesis. It presumes that the solar system began as a cloud of dispersed interstellar gas and what we call the nebula. The mutual gravitational attraction between particles caused them to start moving and colliding, and they were kept together by electrostatic forces. The resulting nebular aggregates became larger than others, grew more rapidly, and ultimately became the planets. Some 40 years later, Pierre-Simon Laplace worked on the existing Kant model, explaining that with the Sun already formed, the continuous rotation of the solar system around an axis would create the planets. Laplace assumed that the Sun cools off as it radiates away its heat, which would also cause its attraction or contraction. As the contraction continues, the Sun's rotational velocity would increase. Following the law of conservation of angular momentum, the centrifugal force would push materials outward the Sun's atmosphere, while gravitational attraction would pull materials toward the central mass. The action of two forces would create a ring of material within the plane of Sun's equator. This process formed several concentric rings that would eventually form the planets, and that is the nebular hypothesis. Let's discuss another theory or another hypothesis explaining the origin of solar system and what we call the planetesimal and tidal theories. Thomas Crowder Chamberlain and Forrest Ray Moulton were worked rather on the Kant-Laplace nebular hypothesis, which became the Chamberlain-Moulton planetesimal hypothesis. They proposed that a star passed close enough to the Sun, creating huge tides and causing materials to be ejected. These smaller masses quickly cooled and became numerous smaller bodies called planetesimals. The accretion of planetesimal created the larger bodies or the protoplanets. Another theory proposed by James Hopwood Jean and Harold Jeffreys was a variation of the planetesimal concept and became Jeans-Jeffreys tidal theory, suggested that when a huge tidal wave was created from the sun's collision with another star, a long filament was drawn up and detached from the principal mass. As the gaseous materials condensed, they separated into masses of various sizes and condensed to form the planets. And last theory that we are going to discuss is what we call the protoplanet theory. The protoplanet theory is a modified version of the nebular hypothesis, which incorporates modern knowledge of matter formed independently by astronomers Gerard Kuiper and Carl von Weizsäcker. The dense area of the nebula and the gaseous matter surrounding it ceased to rotate uniformly. Under the influence of turbulence and tidal action, the nebula broke into whirlpools of gas within a rotating mass called protoplanet. This theory, however, does not explain the formation of the terrestrial planets and gas giants. Again, this theory is this theory rather does not explain the formation of terrestrial planets and gas giants. The use of chemical and physical differences of the planetary formation was provided by Harold Urey. He provided evidence that the terrestrial planets Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars were formed at low temperature of 2200 degrees Fahrenheit, high enough to drive off the lighter substances, the hydrogen and helium, but low enough to allow the condensation of heavier substances such as iron and silica. Because of their proximity to the Sun, the gas giants, which is the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, were prevented from forming earthly materials and were only made up of methane, water, and even ammonia. That's the lesson for today. For your clarifications or even question, you can comment down below or even you can message me directly on my accounts, social media accounts. Again, this is Mr. Mark Joseph Bibadillo. Thank you for listening. See you on our next discussion for this subject. Thank you all and have a blessed day to everyone. God bless you. Stay safe.